Isn't that the best TV theme tune ever? Can you believe it was 1968 when Hawaii Five-0 and Steve McGarrett first popped on our television screens? I don't know about you, but it formed so much of what I thought Hawaii was. Finally, last year, I got the chance to experience the islands firsthand. Now, being American and having spent more than 20 years in travel, it was quite interesting the misconceptions that I had about Hawaii. First of all, I thought it was just like the Caribbean. I thought it was too far and way too far to go for a beach holiday. And of course, because it's so far, well, it must be quite expensive. Well, I'll officially go on record, on tape, as saying I was wrong. First of all, Hawaii is nothing like the Caribbean. Yeah, it's far, it's way over there, but it's so worth the journey. Equally, it is not a beach holiday. The history, the culture, it's just rich with both. The Hawaiian people are genuine and generous. And the ties that the Hawaiian Islands have to Britain, had no idea. And then how it became a U.S. state. Again, the story of Hawaii is why you go. The beaches, well, they're just a bonus. And is it expensive? Well, when you consider where they're located, and the fact they have to import in everything, well, it's going to be a little bit more expensive, but certainly not much more than big cities like San Francisco or New York. So how far exactly are we talking? Well, let's put it into perspective. Clear across the United States, a 5-hour flight off the west coast of the US, you will find the Hawaiian Islands right in the middle of the North Pacific. But for me, the distance to Hawaii is what makes it such an interesting holiday proposition. It fits into any multi-center itinerary you can think of. Ideally, it works best with West Coast places like California and Vegas. But again, you can include it any way you like. Also worth considering too is having it as a standalone destination. Now, having just done it, I'm quite happy to recommend doing that, which I might not have done prior to actually experiencing it myself. We flew to Hawaii in one go, 2 back-to-back flights, and then spent our time between 3 islands. But the point is, you can do it however you like, but it takes a bit of thought, takes a bit of planning, and it sure doesn't hurt to have the help of a Hawaiian expert or two, which luckily I can set you up with. So let's have a closer look at the Hawaiian Islands. Now on my visit, we started in Oahu, then traveled to Maui, visited Lanai as a day trip, and then finished on the Big Island. So as I mentioned earlier, we did our journey all in one go. We flew to Newark. We flew from London to Newark for 7 hours, and then from Newark direct to Honolulu 10 hours later. As I said, it was a long journey, and prior to doing it, I probably wouldn't have recommended it. But having done it, it's not as painful as it seems, and you're there and you're starting your holiday. So as I mentioned, we flew directed to Honolulu. Now, Honolulu is on the south coast of the island of Oahu, and it's also home to Waikiki Beach and Pearl Harbor. Now, Honolulu is very busy and very commercial. Not only is it the state capital, but it's also the most populous city in all of the islands. Also, too, on top of that, you have Japanese, Chinese, and Korean tourists who have made Honolulu their shopping mecca. So again, very, very busy, very touristy. But by contrast, 70 miles to the north, you've got serenity, peaceful beaches, more of what you would likely expect Hawaii to be. So here's a closer look at 2 of Honolulu's icons, Waikiki Beach and Diamond Head. Now, Waikiki Beach surprised me. I wasn't expecting it to be so narrow, and again, thought it was going to be like Caribbean beaches. But I'll tell you, what a vibe. The surfers start to arrive at first light. From about 5:30 in the morning, you see people already getting themselves into their wetsuits and into the water, and it just continues all day. I know California claims to have Surf City USA, but wow, Waikiki Beach is pretty impressive. And then you see that little formation in the background, Diamond Head. Now, I actually had the audacity to be a little bit underwhelmed when I first saw it. I guess I've been to the Rockies, I've lived in Alaska, and well, let's put this into perspective. Diamond Head is not a mountain, it's a volcanic tuft that is estimated to be at least 300,000 years old. Yeah, a little bit of respect. And that's the thing with Hawaii, you've got to change your mindset because it's nothing at all like you've seen anywhere else in America. Now from Oahu in Honolulu, it's just a short 30-minute flight to our next island, the island of Maui. Here you've got gentle rolling hills, beautiful vistas. The landscape is very different from what we just saw in Oahu. Now the main tourist areas are broken up into 3 parts, so to speak. The first area is the Wailea and Makena beach area, which is to the southwest of the island. This area is a bit more upmarket and a bit more secluded. And then as you move to the northwest, you've got the next area, the little old whaling village of Lahaina. Lahaina is quite a buzz of activity with restaurants and shops, and it's a good base to do day trips to other islands like Lanai and Molokai. And then further north, you've got Kaanapali Beach, which is probably the most famous beach area in Maui. And, well, having said that, it's also the busiest as well. So those are your 3 main tourist bases. And then you also have one of the most famous scenic journeys in America, the Road to Hana. Now the Road to Hana encompasses the northern part of Maui down the eastern coast to the town of Hana. It's approximately a 4-hour journey one way, but you are in for a treat. This is where you find the hidden waterfalls and vistas that are just so stunningly gorgeous. It's definitely worth adding to your list of things to do on Maui. And 2, I'm hoping you're getting a sense, because Maui is a bit spread out, this is an island you're going to need a car. Just to give you a general idea, going from somewhere like the Wailea Makena area up north to Lahaina or Kaanapali is about a 45-minute drive. Sure, you can take taxis and you can easily arrange escorted tours and guided tours, but there's nothing like having the ultimate freedom of your own car. And we're going to insist it's a Jeep, in fact. So it's time to leave the relaxing pace of Maui and head to our final island, the Big Island. Now it's another short 30-minute flight and we're landing in Hilo. Now Hilo doesn't quite prepare you for what you're going to experience in the rest of the island, as this is the east coast of the island. It receives the most rain and is more tropical, more rainforest, that sort of climate, very similar to Maui. But of course the rest of the island is completely volcanic, and nothing at all prepares you for what you're about to see. It is just mind-boggling. Now the whole island of Hawaii was formed by 5 volcanoes, 3 of which are still active today. And you can in fact stay in a hotel situated on one of the active volcanoes. As you travel south from Hilo, you start to enter Volcanoes National Park, and the landscape, it's almost prehistoric. Again, never seen anything at all like it. It's molten lava that is just years and years and years formed the landscape that is the south and then the west coast of Big Island. As you leave Volcanoes National Park and head up the west coast, it's the Kahala Coast, and that is the gateway to Kona, which is the main tourist resort area. And again, the beaches, well, there really aren't beaches as you know them on this kind of coast. Everything again is this sort of landscape. So what's the first thing you do when you get to the Big Island? Well, it's got to be a helicopter trip over an active volcano, doesn't it? Which was our very first scheduled activity, and one I was really excited about. I've been in many helicopters and wasn't the least bit nervous about this, until we got to the helipad and I discovered they hadn't told us the entire truth. Our helicopter had no doors. Yes, we were signed up for the doorless helicopter volcano excursion. Well, now I'm getting a little bit nervous. It's literally 2 seats in back and 2 seats next to the pilot. And, well, that's about it. The first couple of minutes, you're very irrationally thinking you're going to fall out and somehow eject your seatbelt, and there you go. But after a few minutes, you settle down, and I will tell you, once you get over that volcano, you are so glad you don't have doors, because you are absolutely experiencing it. You can feel the heat, you can see the lava, and you are getting the pictures of your life because, of course, there are no doors. So it was incredible, and I would strongly urge that to be on your list of activities on the Big Island. Now, if that weren't enough, we're whisked away from the helicopter, still haven't got my mind around what I just did, and we're off ziplining. Now, if you've never ziplined before, Hawaii is the perfect place to try it because of the stunning, stunning scenery you will see. Now, if you haven't ziplined before, in a nutshell, you're in a harness and they clip your harness to steel cables and then send you from one platform to another. Well, you start out just a couple of 100 feet above the ground, but by the last sort of zips, you're thousands of feet above the ground. But this is where you see, again, things you'll never ever see from any other vantage point. Hidden waterfalls, and you can just see out to sea for miles. It was an incredible experience. Again, would definitely urge you to try it. You need absolutely no prior skill to it. There's no age requirement. You just need to have a little bit of adventure about you, but a great experience. And then, again, if that weren't enough, the last bit of adventure I did on the Big Island was a swim with the manta ray. Now, the way it works, you get all wetsuited up, get on a boat, and you take just a short 8 minutes sail out to the point where the manta ray come. They send a float out the back end of the boat, and you basically jump in the water and work your way onto this float and hold on. Your feet are then suspended by a flotation device, so you're literally skimming the top of the water, and your face is the only thing physically in the water. You've got your whole snorkel gear. And it's night, so it's pitch black, but they light the ocean from the floor. So what it does is it illuminates the plankton, which is the food of choice of the manta ray. Now let's talk a little bit about the manta ray. I think they get a bit of a bad rap. But in all honesty, they are completely harmless. They have not a tooth in their head, and unlike their cousin, the stingray, they have no sting. They literally are 100% harmless. But what gets you and what you're not expecting is the sheer size of these gentle giants, because they will be from 6 to 10 feet across. And the way they come in, everything is about trying to get as many plankton in their mouths at any given time as possible. They're coming in and all they're interested in is feeding. They're not interested in you. But of course, sometimes the plankton are close to you, so by proximity, the manta ray becomes close to you as well. But again, the way they swim, they're just moving through the water, collecting all these plankton. It is an unbelievable experience. And the Hawaiians will say, the closer the manta ray come to you, the nicer the person you are, and that you will leave the islands with lots of luck. So I'm guessing I'll win the lottery anytime now. But again, another experience you'll possibly never do anywhere else. So in a very small nutshell, that was my trip, my very first trip to Hawaii. Now there's a few lessons that I learned about Hawaii. The first being, you can't compare it to anywhere else in America. You will see things that you'll never see anywhere else and that you may be seeing for the first time. So you need to get rid of any preconceived notions and go with an open mind. The second lesson I learned is you have to look beyond the facade. Most of Hawaii's hotels were built in the 70s as tourism started to replace a struggling and then dying pineapple industry. So most of the hotels have a very 70s facade to it. Now it's important to understand the Hawaiians are a very sustainable, green sort of culture. They wouldn't import anything if they didn't have to, and they're not about to waste anything either. So they're not about to level buildings and rebuild them glitzier and better than the last. They very much work with what they've got. So they strive to make the exteriors look as beautiful and lush as they can, and they do clever things with interiors and with lighting. But the truth is, this is generally your first glimpse. But I can promise you, Hawaii always surprises, because this is what you will always see on the other side. And when it comes to Hawaii hotels, there are only 2 words you ever need to remember: ocean front. There is no point going clear across the world. You remember that first slide, just how far you're going. There's no point going that distance to settle for these sorts of views. And in fact, in Bon Voyage, we just won't let it happen. It doesn't add an overall huge amount of cost to your holiday. Well, I hope I've convinced you that Hawaii needs to be on your USA holiday list. It will take a lot of thought, it will take a lot of planning, and it certainly doesn't hurt to have the advice of an expert or two. But it's so worth doing, and it's a holiday we'd love to help you put together with our first-hand experience. We hope to hear from you soon. Thanks for listening.